The film opens with what feels like an endless, pointless drive, a perfect metaphor for Johnny's life. The dark-colored Jaguar fast car keeps revving at every push the throttle gets. Without thinking twice, he eventually stops the car in the middle of the road, as if he's hit a midlife crisis. He then steps out of the car and surveys the empty road, as if he were searching for a missing person. Johnny isn't one to wallow in a state of dysphoria or soak himself in melancholy. His untold motto may just be the popular phrase, "Life goes on." He hits a party with friends. He's so intoxicated that he trips down the stairs while someone remarks that he's a known klutz. Johnny, who doesn't always wear a classy demeanor, is now in a hotel room with a cast on his arm and a bruise on his face. He's in bed while twin performers perform for him on twin poles, right till he dozes off. They don't mind if he's watching them or he's asleep. They're professional enough to keep at it. When they're done, they pack up their equipment and head out while Johnny enjoys his sleep. It's a new day, so Johnny freshens up with some water and pills. The previous night was a whole lot for him. The bruise on his cheek is still red and glaring. His body is still a bit sore from the fall the previous night. Johnny has a smoke and beer at an outdoor setup. Someone asks if he's fine, seeing he's still in a cast with a bruise and some sunshades. Johnny states he's fine, and despite his appearance, two ladies from across a table can't take their eyes off him. Johnny just has this charm and pull on ladies. One remarks that he's definitely worth her attention. Meanwhile, Johnny gets a message from a private number. Someone wants to know why Johnny is such a thorn in the flesh. After reading the text, he really doesn't budge. Johnny, who doesn't mind being on the road all day, goes driving and meets a beautiful blonde by the traffic lights. Johnny, who has a soft spot for women, changes route and follows her. Back at his place, it's more beer and cigarettes. Johnny revisits the hotel and has the twins perform for him again. This time they're tennis players. He watches them with more enthusiasm than the last time. You know, eyes wide with a hopeful smile of some sort. When it's over, he applauds them. One of them comes towards his nightstand, and he tries to grab her, but she pushes him off because she's Cindy, not the other one. Johnny apologizes and the other one happily gets in bed to kiss him. He has always found it hard to tell the difference between the twins. Johnny wakes up to his cast getting signed by Cleo. Cleo is Johnny's beautiful 11-year-old daughter. He is co-parents with Layla. Cleo's mother, Layla, is by the door and asks Johnny why he has the cast, so he lies that it was an accident from a stunt, reminding her he does his own stunts. Layla, who is having her own life issues, tries to keep to her part of the deal with regards to Cleo. Layla tells Johnny to return Cleo on time. Father and daughter moment begins. Johnny is driving and brings to Cleo's attention that the car behind them might be tailing them. Cleo turns back in her seat, but can't see any cameras to support her father's claims. They arrive at the rink for Cleo's ice skating lessons, and Johnny stays in the bleachers, texting. At some point, he puts his phone aside and watches his daughter long enough to see she's talented. He knows better than to spend the little time he has with Cleo doing other things. On the drive back, Johnny has only nice words for Cleo. Although surprised at Cleo's skill set, he wouldn't hide the truth from her, that she's a natural. He's unaware she even knew how to ice skate, but she reveals she's been on it for 3 years now. The look on Johnny's face reveals one thing only: he's a proud father. As they continue driving, Johnny complains the same car is still tailing them, but Cleo waves it off as possibly a different car since SUVs are quite common in LA. Still, she thinks fast, noting the car's plate number in her phone, and Johnny is quite impressed with her. It's late evening by the time he returns Cleo to Layla, a day well spent with his beautiful daughter. Johnny gets an aggressive text shortly after from a private number. He gets back to his apartment and finds Sammy hosting a party in the suite. The long-haired Sammy, who almost always looks unkempt, shares many of the same attributes as Johnny, and is a longtime friend Johnny. The place is choked with people, booze, and cigarettes. Johnny, who is a regular in an ambiance like this, blends right in with a drink in hand. An aspiring actor calls Johnny's attention, wanting to know how Johnny made his path as an actor. Johnny relays he never went to acting school, nor does he have a method of acting. He's a go-with-the-flow kind of guy, the same way he loves to live his life. Johnny finds an attractive blonde at the party, and he introduces himself. While the party is still going on, they head to the bedroom for some sexual activities. Johnny, who now has so much booze in his system, passes out mid-action. He wakes up the next morning. After having a shower that helps clear his head better, he gets a call from Marge that he has pending work to attend to. His car ride is waiting for him outside. Johnny arrives and Claire takes charge, listing out his schedule for the day. Johnny heads up for a photo shoot with his co-star Rebecca. They're supposed to have the best of chemistry for the camera, but in reality, Rebecca has her grievances towards him. She walks away as soon as the photographer is done with his shots. She doesn't give room for any form of familiarization. For what it is worth, Rebecca isn't blonde, and that might just explain why she and Johnny have little to no chemistry. Next up is a press conference surrounding Johnny's latest movie. The hall is packed, and journalists start hitting him with questions the moment he takes his seat. One of the questions asked is, "Who is Johnny Marco?" At the end of the busy day, Johnny asks his chauffeur to make a quick stop somewhere. Somewhere ends up being a blonde's house. The dude has a type. Afterwards, Johnny is dropped back at his hotel, and he thanks his chauffeur for earlier. He takes the elevator ride, telling a stranger on request that he's staying in room 59. Johnny takes to the balcony for a smoke and is offered a view of the streets with a giant billboard of his co-star, Rebecca. Marge, who is always standing on business protocol, wakes Johnny with a phone call. He'll need to get a new look for a studio session, and she's left the map to get there under his mat. Johnny drives to his appointment, and the artists get to work. They wear him a wig cap and instruct him to keep his eyes and mouth shut. The process needs him to sit upright, and they go about covering his entire head with some heavy white substance. One of them mentions it's time for bandages, and they all leave Johnny there sitting still and waiting for minutes. When the artists are done, Johnny is totally transformed, so much that he can't even believe it. The makeup has him looking elderly with thinning hair. Johnny returns to his room and is just out of the shower when he gets a call from the receptionist that his masseuse is available. The professional is a guy much to Johnny's dislike, but he tells the receptionist to give him the go-ahead to come to his room. Johnny had been expecting his usual Lori, but her replacement lets Johnny know that she's unavailable. Things take a weird turn after Johnny lays down for the masseuse to work. The guy undresses amidst nature-inspired music on the stereo he's come with. Johnny jolts out of the bed, shocked, so the masseuse explains it's part of his technique to get undressed, and he's sorry if Johnny wasn't informed beforehand. Johnny doesn't want the massage session anymore, and politely tells the masseuse to get packing. The guy gets dressed and apologizes for any misunderstandings and inconveniences. Johnny, fresh out of the shower and still in a towel, steps out to grab his mail when the blonde from the room across asks if he has an extra stick. With a cigarette in his mouth, he smirks and replies sure before heading toward her room, where the innuendo is just as clear as his intentions. Johnny would never decline a blonde's offer. Johnny finds Cleo waiting for him at his doorstep. She's curious as to why he was in the room across. Seeing as he's just in a towel, her innocent mind concludes that he must have been having a shower there because his bath is broken or something. Johnny lies that's exactly the case, and then he asks her what she's doing at his place instead of being at school. She clarifies it's Sunday. Johnny and Cleo play video games involving electric guitars, and Sammy is present. Johnny beats Cleo at the game, and Sammy teases that Johnny should stick to movies, calling him another failed actor transitioning into music. Sammy keeps Cleo busy, joining her to doodle while he tells her inappropriate stories not meant for a girl below her teens. He asks her if she can do more than just ballet and if she's really good at it too. She replies that she tries her best. He promises her she'll understand his inappropriate stories better when she's older. Johnny and the same. Birds of a feather. Johnny has to stop playing the game when Marge calls. It's more work, something about LA Times wanting a quote on his mother's book. He's displeased, but Marge insists they'll need to give the publisher something. He needs to be in Milan by Tuesday or Wednesday. Johnny is barely listening because he's by the balcony, and below is a sight Johnny will never fail to behold, a model in a bikini. The scene gets better for Johnny when the model takes off her top invitingly, and Marge is barely able to draw him back to earth. Meanwhile, Cleo calls reception and orders a list of things she needs. Johnny is currently MIA, but Sammy plays virtual lawn tennis with Cleo. Cleo gets the items she wanted, and now she's in the kitchen cooking. Her father is on a call with her mother. Layla tells Johnny that she'll be unavailable for a while, and that she needs him to take Cleo to camp. Cleo will be at camp for a few weeks. She directs that it's close to where his parents live, but the whole news confuses Johnny. He hasn't planned for any of such trips. The timing of this directive from Layla isn't fair for him, as he's also not going to be available. His movie is premiering in Milan. Layla doesn't divulge what exactly is going on with her, only insisting that Johnny takes Cleo to camp and it's goodbye for now. Johnny decides Cleo will come with him on his travels. They begin their trips, and the first stop is Italy. When they get there, they're ushered into a grand suite with a lavish jacuzzi that has Cleo excited. For the next few days, Cleo would be having a taste of the scenery her dad has constantly enjoyed since he became a star. Johnny meets Poopy and his associates, and he introduces Cleo to them. Poopy promises Johnny there's no hurry and he can take his time in his suite before joining them downstairs. Johnny and Cleo go down to the lobby. Poopy is waiting for him in the next room, but a blonde needs to steal his time for a moment or two. She takes him to a corner and quarrels with him for ghosting her. He tries to pacify her while Cleo settles down with a book in another corner. Johnny meets with Poopy and gets interviewed by an enthusiastic journalist. She asks Johnny if he can speak Italian, so he calls out a few phrases that he knows. Back at the suite, Cleo swims the length and breadth of the jacuzzi excitedly. Johnny watches her and encourages her swimming skills. She's having the time of her life, and Johnny is pleased that she's having it beside him. During bedtime, Cleo has trouble sleeping, and Johnny asks her if she'd like a snack. She agrees, so Johnny calls room service and orders 2 of each flavor of all their gelatos. His phone is still getting buzzed with threatening texts that he chooses to ignore. Their gelatos arrive, and they take it in bed while watching Friends in Italian. Johnny's favorite flavor is strawberry, but Cleo is more of a chocolate kind of girl. Cleo finally falls asleep, but Johnny is still awake. He double-checks that she's actually in dreamland before he turns off the night lamp, and he goes to get the door for his late-night visitor. Johnny's lady friend joins Cleo for breakfast. Cleo tells her she's 11 when the woman asks. The blonde goes on to tell Cleo about her love life when she was the same age. She was in love with a boy named Nito, and he had a scooter. Johnny joins shortly after, and Cleo gives him a stare, depicting she's not happy he's brought someone over. Johnny pleads back with his eyes. Johnny meets with Poopy again. Their schedule includes stopping by the awards show where he'll drop his take on Al Pacino. After that, they'll have dinner with the mayor. Johnny is cleaned up and nicely dressed in a suit. Cleo steps out and steals the show in an elegant dress. Poopy and his associates are impressed while Johnny is proud, stating his daughter looks beautiful. Cleo coming on this trip with Johnny now feels like a joyous one for Johnny. More bonding time and more moments to be proud of Cleo, one of the many joys of being a father. Johnny and Cleo attend the awards show together, and he's called out to receive an award for his premiering movie. He says a vote of thanks in Italian and is about to step off the stage when an unexpected performance ensues. Female dancers sing and perform, keeping Johnny on stage. Johnny has never been scared of giving a show, and this wouldn't be any different. Cleo doesn't seem bothered, smiling at her dad, so he smiles back at her, even as he owns the stage. One of the dancers is a blonde, and she's definitely caught Johnny's attention. Typical of Johnny, who sees blonde women as the ultimate. Johnny and Cleo are ready to head back home. They board a car, and Johnny asks the chauffeur to take them to the airport. The chauffeur is booked for someone else, but agrees to assist the superstar. As they drive away, journalists spot and wave at them. Johnny and Cleo give each other a knowing look. Cleo is having a taste of stardom, and she's enjoying it. Johnny and Cleo arrive back home. They rest downstairs in the lobby, sitting close to each other. Cleo agrees she's tired when Johnny asks, so is he. An artist, Romulo, with his guitar, offers to play them a song. Cleo has never heard him play before, but Johnny has, and remarks Cleo won't be disappointed. Romulo delivers the perfect lullaby that has Cleo asleep in no time. It's the next morning and Cleo is up. She makes breakfast for 3, cheeseburgers and orange juice. Sammy and Johnny enjoy the meal, commending her for her cooking skills. She has her laptop at the dining table because she's trying to make a list for camp. She has a few items already typed down, so both Johnny and Sammy help her list a few more. Cleo practices her ballet in the living room, while her dad tries to peel off his cast. Cleo finds some books and asks Johnny if he's read any of them. He hasn't, and proposes she could read them for him and then give her reviews. Sammy proposes they read Cleo's diary. That's not happening, but Sammy tells a story of how he and Johnny read their Aunt Tiffany's diary once, and the woman wasn't happy about it. Sammy and Johnny are definitely a friendship match made in heaven. He excuses they were looking for an adventure, but Sammy got kicked out. He's still confused as to why Johnny didn't get kicked out with him. Johnny successfully removes the cast and hands it to Cleo. She doesn't want it though because it smells. Johnny and Cleo step out to buy some things. He's driving back when he wants to know if Cleo has heard from Layla. She hasn't called, but she's left Layla a message. According to Cleo, Layla seems fine. The car engine fails, so Johnny calls for a tow truck. They wait outside the vehicle by a curb, and Johnny asks what they'll do with their time before the truck arrives. They get back to their LA suite and Johnny finds Bambi waiting for him in bed. He mentions it's bad timing and then asks an oblivious Cleo if she'd like to go downstairs with him for some food. They have a fun time playing games and poking fun at a woman in a group for her outfit. A blonde tries to get Johnny's attention, but isn't able to hold it for long because he's very interested in goofing around for his daughter instead. It may seem as though Johnny would always pick his daughter over blondes. Johnny asks Cleo if she'd like to stay an extra day with him before she has to go, and she's up for it. They spend their time playing table tennis, then they go diving and dry out in the sun. On their way back, Cleo has started reading one of the books and tells her dad it's a story about cross-star lovers. One is a vampire, and the other is a human. The vampire doesn't want to turn the human into a vampire. Now back, it turns out that Johnny isn't bad with the piano. He plays a melody for Cleo while she's lounging on a sofa. On the ride to Belmont, Cleo starts crying. Layla never mentioned when she would come back, and it has Cleo panicking because Johnny is always busy and away. Johnny takes Cleo in his arms and asks her to stop crying. Cleo longs to have either of her parents around for at least almost all the time. The pair end up in Las Vegas, where Johnny shows Cleo a few gambling tricks. Next up, they board a helicopter, then a taxi waits to take Cleo to camp. Just before the car pulls away, and in a mood that suggests he hit a moment of realization, Johnny calls out an apology. He's sorry he hasn't been around. He wants to do better, but his lifestyle and work deters him. Cleo waves in response and he waves back. Johnny goes back to LA. After some mundane activities and reflection, he calls Layla and has a mental breakdown. He admits he's at a low in his life. Layla proposes that he could volunteer to do some charity work to see if it would help him. Johnny doesn't want that and asks Layla if she can come over. She pauses for a while, and this gives Johnny a ray of hope that his wish might be granted, but Layla declines. She then goes on to encourage him, saying he's going to be okay. He dismissively concurs before ending the call. He keeps crying long after the call is over. He returns to his mundane activities before deciding one day that he's moving out of the hotel and he'll need his things boxed and shipped to a new address that he'll give the hotel staff. Perhaps the unexpected and extended time spent with Cleo has made him see life differently. Johnny embarks on a long journey. He packs his car in the middle of nowhere and continues his journey on foot with a sense of purpose.